Welcome back to the Quiet on Set podcast powered by Cineman. I'm Ewan and as always, I'm joined by Lachlan Healy.
On episode 158, Ewan has plenty of news to talk about and share with us, and mostly it's about delays, which is kind of funny because before we started recording, there was a bit of a delay between audio and video, so that's only a joke for Ewan and I to enjoy, and no one else. So, inclusivity.
Yeah, hopefully our audio quality will not be, noticed
Don't
by
say
you
it.
watching.
Don't say it. It jinxes
I don't want
it.
to.
Don't say it.
Jinx it. Screaming Bloody Mary a bunch of times. It's like I don't have a quirky remark right now. But it's Halloween. It's Halloween when this episode comes out. It's spooky season, so both Lachlan and I caught a bunch of horror films. Lachlan, I'm surprised for someone who doesn't love horror. You sure have been watching a bunch. We both saw the FNAP movie, Five Nights at Freddy's. I also caught something called Slotherhouse, Pet Semetary Bloodlines, and Saw X. And you rewatched Talk to Me for the third time, I think. So, yeah.
I watched the Halloween movies because get into the season, festive season for
That's
murder.
fair.
Finally, today's main topic of conversation is a film involving a killer. Not like last week where it was Killers of a Flower Moon, and nor is it the band The Killers. It's just The Killer.
Gets really confusing very quickly if you don't pay attention enough. A lot of Hitmen going around in Hollywood. Just have been for a while. We'll actually be talking about that in a bit as well. Let's cue up the intro and get into the show. We are professionals.
This is a professional podcast.
Yes. Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Hello there. Which actually,
Did you
this
get
is gonna
me a
be
hat
a
as
bit,
well?
Yes.
So I've got Dooncam. It's just a camera with my Dune steelbook.
Lachlan, welcome back. If I seem a bit dead, it's
Hello.
because I've been awake for 27 hours. We
Cool.
did just wrap an event. I actually can. Hold up, I'll show you the poster for the event, actually.
Oh, now I've got to entertain while Ewan runs away. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. I got Lord of the Rings on 4K. Oh, sorry. 8 hours of horror. Whoa!
Yes.
Spooky 8 hours.
That's the event I'm just coming back from, usually as an attendee. I don't know why I tried to say that in such a fancy way. But yeah, 4 surprise horror films. We'll talk a bit about that in what we've been watching, I think. Well, I will. Lachlan wasn't there, obviously, because he's on the other side of the world. There's also daylight savings tonight. Just a lot of random stuff that is obviously weighing on me, because who needs daylight saving? Anyways, yeah, so I pulled an all-nighter, haven't done that in a while, but yeah, Lachlan, what's been up with you? Any news? You showed me a bunch of gift cards that you got, like I was surprised. He just pulled them out.
I was just cleaning my desk and I found some money, which was great. That's always the best thing when you just find cash.
I love that.
While
yeah.
you were away, I was showing off Lord of the Rings 4K
Yes.
that I got,
Oof.
and I left the other one elsewhere. And I wanted to show it off as well because I thought it'd be a cool week to show it, but I guess I will show it next week. So, building the anticipation for a movie. I also got Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse on 4K, but I decided to pick up a couple movies on 4K, and that one, like this one, is because I want to rewatch Lord of the Rings. Like, I had a mate buy this recently, and he was telling me it was great, and I was like, I want to get it now, and I haven't watched Lord of the Rings in many, many years. And then the other movie that I got, or movies I got, is a set of films that I have never seen before.
Okay. Wait, did you get to Before trilogy?
No, you
Really
made me
sucking
watch
up to
that
me.
trilogy.
You
But
already
that's the
saw it,
only
yeah.
hint I will give of what other DVDs, 4K DVDs I got. So if you can guess it,
I'm not. I got no.
you
clue
don't win
right
anything.
now.
You just win my respect.
Yeah.
Which is enough. Anyway.
We're gonna TP your virtual Discord account, cause it's Halloween. But I guess we are not gonna get spoiled with all the treats in one go. But we'll ring the bell. But which actually, reminder, maybe if you subscribe and like the video, you can also hit that bell to get notified for all the new videos that drop on the channel. Yeah, that's there's nothing else to that allegory. With I guess you get new movies from Lachlan because he's buying physical media, and I love that.
Supporting it.
There were some trailers that dropped this week that I think the trailer roundup video this week was like 11 minutes long, and it's usually like half an hour. So there wasn't a lot that came out. I think it was basically just all Netflix trailers because, well, everything else has just kind of moved off the schedule, especially Disney had a bunch of updates of stuff that was slated to release early in 2024 and has now been pushed back an entire year. So, for example, the live action Snow White film is moving to March 21st, 2025. It had like a release sometime in March or June or somewhere in that area. Well, I guess next year. And then the same for Pixar's new film, Elio, also moved to June 13th of 2025. The next Mission Impossible film that was supposed to come out next summer got pushed to May 23rd of 2025. The Bike Riders, a film that was supposed to come out, I think, in the beginning of December, has been pushed back indefinitely. And I think it's gonna continue happening because the SAG and the AMPTP are meeting. I think at the moment there's no current stop to the discussions, but with the way that everyone is shifting the whole slate back an entire year, doesn't seem like there's an end in sight for this soon. I mean, they moved around. Deadpool also got delayed until a later date, but I think they're moving up like another one of the MCU films. But honestly, who cares about the MCU? I care so much more about Snow White and whatever the latest stuff is from Pixar with Elio. But yeah,
You care about Snow White,
it's a bit of a pity.
even though it's like surrounded in controversy. Like surrounded.
Yeah, it's oh my god, it's such annoying controversy as well.
It's crazy
it's so
that
dumb.
it like pisses off everybody. Somehow this movie has
Yeah.
pissed off like every single person possible.
Is it? I don't know. I haven't really followed it. I just like know that some, like, I don't know, the whole concept of, hey, it's Snow White and it's played by someone who's of like Latinx descent. They're like they're furious, like, oh, she's not Snow White. And
But
it's like, oh,
also like
that's your main
CGI
concern.
dwarves as well.
Those looked odd, yeah.
But
I guess
also
I
the
guess you
fact
don't
that
really get up in arms about
they
it.
still like they still go with the dwarf name, which can be quite offensive
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
that community.
It is a tricky thing because also I think there was this Rachel Segler quote where she was like basically spitting facts about what Snow White is gonna be. Like, she's not gonna be chasing after the prince and they're gonna turn it on its head, which is, I think, overall a great and fine idea. Just I don't think that Disney can deliver that. It's gonna always feel like such a product, like such a, I don't know. So it's gonna be ring super hollow. Maybe even if the intentions for the people in front, maybe like a lot of the people behind the camera are in the right place, it's just not gonna come from the big corporation that is Disney. I just don't believe that's gonna happen. So, and I don't think it needs to happen. It's like this. Well, I don't know. My 27 hours of being awake kicks in because my next thing was about I was about to get like political.
Don't do it, Ewan.
Let's stop me there.
This is
Let's
not the right podcast.
Yeah. But FNAP, Five Nights at Freddy's, is making bank, man. It's predicted to be making 78 million in the US alone on its opening weekend, and then I think internationally it was somewhere between, I think, 140. I'll correct that right here to the actual number that it will turn out to be. And the release date's strategy was that it was gonna be a PG-13 movie. There's no R-rated cut out there anywhere. That was always the goal. It's also worth mentioning that this release day and date on Paramount Plus. That's like the reason why Lachlan and I actually got to watch it as well straight away. We didn't even contribute to this box office total. So lots of kids, I guess, dragging their parents, I assume, to go see this film. And it's interesting. I mean, it's definitely going to have a bunch of sequels, and yeah, it's doing very well overall. Yeah, that's pretty much all the news. Well, apart from a sad passing of Matthew Perry, whose most notable role I think was in Friends. And since then, I think he hasn't really acted that much. He's been in stuff, not a lot of movies. He's done some TV. But yeah, he sadly passed away at age 54 only. So yeah, condolences to the friends and family. It's yeah, it was quite a surprise. Like I got this as I was wrapping up my shift. I was like, wait, what? That's so out of nowhere. Just sad news overall. Lachlan, this week, because we are talking about The Killer and Hitman overall, I was wondering, there's an upcoming film from Richard Linklater, which is called Hitman. And it's about like the actual non-existence of Hitman and how he kind of is playing into the expectation that people have for a hitman to kind of have a gotcha thing of, they want to hire someone to do a murder, and then he kind of gets them. Like, that's the premise of the movie. It's really, really funny. But overall, like, the hitman persona is an invention from Hollywood. It doesn't really exist in that way, like the contracted killer. So I was wondering, like, do you have a favorite hitman in movies? And I have a couple of
Oh,
lists
okay.
that have their own rankings here, but yeah, like, on anyone come to mind?
My favorite hitman or hit person,
Yes.
if you want to be neutral.
Yes.
That's interesting. I guess it just depends how you define like the hitman role, the job of a hitman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And whether you just consider it if it's a contracted kill, because then if it's contracted, then I guess someone like Leon the professional,
Yeah.
is technically contracted, and then I guess there's a contracted hit for John Wick in the movies,
Yeah.
but I guess he's a hitman as well, and
Mhm.
but then I think like Atomic Blonde, but Atomic Blonde wasn't so much a hitman, more of an agent. So I can't really count Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde because she's not technically a hitman. She's a
Mhm.
secret agent. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
wouldn't count
and
like James
and
Bond in this. But
because he's got the
someone
license to kill.
he does have a license to kill, and you hitmen usually don't. I mean, No Country for Old Men has a classic hit.
But
Does
is
he
he
have
a
a hitman? I don't
hitman?
know.
He's just a
Yeah, I guess
psychopath.
he's just a killer. Yeah, the killer, but not in that sense. Yeah, it's hard to define. I mean, if you look at it, I think Leon the Professional is probably like like Pulp Fiction has one. Le Samurai, which is actually on the IMDb list, the #1 ranked film. That's a really like stylistically interesting film as well, but it's from the 60s. It's quite old. But it's a pretty good movie.
I think like the another good example of like a hitman is like the In Bruges,
Yeah.
right? Those are
Yeah, yeah,
hitmen.
for
They
sure.
would probably be my favorite
Mhm.
because they're the funniest of the two.
I really hope in the next Jeopardy that it's not gonna have like the movie Jeopardy that we do every now and then. So we list all of the hitmen, because I don't know. It's a tough one to like
Well,
come
here's another one.
to name.
Agent 47.
He's literally, I guess, hitman. Yeah.
He's literally a hitman.
More of a gamer though. A bit of a gamer, a
Yeah,
bald man.
but it is a movie.
It is a movie. Indeed.
I'm not
But yeah,
wrong.
what do you think? What do you think maybe is the best like Hitman movie that does have, I guess, Hitman in it? Because like obviously John Wick is the most famous one, where
Yeah.
there's literally like a whole universe of Hitman just everywhere. Would that be your pick? The John Wick
Look, scrolling through
franchise?
this list of hitmen, right? I haven't actually seen a lot of them, and funnily enough, a lot of them are almost entirely set in Asia. Like there's not a lot of
There's a
Western
lot of them, yeah.
films where it's a hitman, right? Which it's kind of
Mm.
interesting. I guess invented by Hollywood but perfected by Eastern cinema is a good way of looking
Yeah,
at like the
maybe
hitman.
Yeah, I don't know if that's completely correct in what I said that it's like invented by Hollywood, but maybe a stereotype or like a character type that came out of movies, and I don't know where it originated. It could be that it's like an Asian thing, an Eastern thing. Um, I'm not entirely sure on that, but it certainly is like a really
Oh,
relevant.
Fallen Angels. Oh,
I
completely
haven't
forgot
seen
about
that
Fallen
one.
Angels.
Still not. I haven't seen that one.
I might say stylistically like that's my
Yeah.
favorite, but oh, once again, it's not so much like the life of an assassin,
Yep.
or a hitman. So I'm actually leaning towards, and it's funny because when I start talking about the killer, it's gonna be a bit different, but I think that the best movie talking about a hitman is The Killer. Like, I think that out of any of the movies I've seen where I'm involving a hitman, maybe I'm not thinking
Mhm.
about it long enough, but I think that, in all honesty, The Killer represents a hitman very, very
Mhm.
interestingly. Fallen Angels is a good one as well for a similar like John Wick story. I just saw Killing Them Softly as well as another one, which is more of a gangster than an
Yeah.
assassin really, but yeah, it's hard to define. I don't know. I don't really want to define these as like assassins or hitmen. I would just say that they're just like I guess in a gangster film they are assassins technically. They are killing someone on a hit. Oh, then I guess it is a hitman. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, this is
Yeah,
okay.
they're
Then we
like
can expand
contracted
it.
killers, but it's not like you wouldn't count Goodfellas in here, for example, because that's like a
Mm,
mob movie, a crime movie. Or yeah, it's a different type of organized crime as a maybe collective, even if there's
yeah.
hitmen within there. Yeah, it's definitely a really prominent stereotype, to have that sort of character in Hollywood, like the guy who's so capable that he is able to take everyone out and is so proficient at it. Where I feel like real life is probably like way messier if there's ever something like that. Even though there are assassinations and stuff like that, it doesn't seem like there's I don't know, like a collective or any kind of infrastructure that actually has like hitmen in it. That's pretty much all I had to add for discussion time. Again, today I'm kind of on low energy. Apologies for that, but I'll try
I'm on low
to hang
energy.
by. Yeah, so Lachlan, do you want to get to what we've been watching?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so yeah, what have you been up this week? What you been watching?
That's a good one. Sorry, I'm reading and I googled like Hitman, and someone said Angel Eyes from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He's technically a hired gun.
Oh yeah, he is. I only did like a mild search for
Yeah.
to find like lists, but there weren't a ton because I feel like it is hard to define. To
Oh my
find
god, dude, we didn't even think about
limitations.
this. This is thinking really outside the box. The original Terminator movie, the T-800, is technically a hitman.
I guess he is. Yeah.
Are you fucking
Well,
kidding me?
it gets
He has
different
a
when there's
target.
machines in it. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great one.
Such an
That's a great
such an
one.
open-ended discussion time question.
I like that one. That one was good. Sorry. We should get to what we've been watching. Now you can flex that you did 8 hours of horror. Whoop-de-doo. I have a finite amount of time on this earth, so I ain't gonna waste it. Which is why I watched Five Nights at Freddy, and you watch Five Nights at Freddy.
We both
And on the count of
watched
3,
Five Nights at
I
Freddy.
want us to both say our ratings. I don't care. Ready? 1, 2,
Alright.
3. 1 star.
2 out of 5. Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah, damn. Yeah, you didn't like it at all, huh?
I did not like the movie. There were aspects that were cool, but I did not like the movie. And
It's not a good
the
film.
best part about it is the reason I watched it is last night we did a movie night with a bunch of mates, got together, we watched Talk to Me, which was my 3rd time watching it this year, like
Mhm.
literally like the 3rd time. And we watched Five Nights at Freddy. And I can tell you for a fact, the only reason Five Nights at Freddy gets a 1 star is that I was sitting next to my mate who knew all of the FNAF lore, like inside and out. And the other reason it's getting 1 star, and this is the only reason it's getting a full star, right? It's two people. The first one is Matthew Lillard. I love Matthew Lillard. Anything he's in, I love it. But 2, Matt Pat from Game Theory, and he said the thing. He said the thing. And it was so good. It was so good. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yep. It was pretty fun.
Other than that,
is that the reason why you ended up? So you saw Matthew Lillard in FNAF, in the FNAF movie, and you ended up rewatching Scream because of that?
So no,
no.
Scream's just a good like movie to watch. I didn't know Matthew Lillard was in it until I saw the opening credits and I saw his name and I was like, perfect double feature. So yeah, no, I if I'm totally honest, FNAF could definitely be higher, but it was unfortunately not a horror movie. It was a romance movie.
It was a romance, but it was also this weird, hey, let's cut back to the same flashback a dozen times.
Yeah.
Without actually having something interesting going on. It didn't
have anything going for it. So yeah, that's the unfortunate mess of FNAF. But again, I also watched Talk to Me, and I feel like it gets better every single rewatch because I watched it first at a preview screening, and some people jumped, but it wasn't that crazy. I watched it recently, just me and Tanika just watched it by ourselves, and it was fine. And then this was probably the best rewatch with a group of people in a house, similar to what they were doing in the movie, and people were actually
Holding
scared.
hands.
And yeah, it was great because I'd seen the film twice, so I knew the ins and outs of pretty much what was going to happen, so I could just like watch it and then turn around and see if it was like live reaction. So I guess for me that was the best part of the film. But the other film I watched was Scream, classic. No reason I need to continue talking about it because it's pretty much like one of my favorite horror movies at this point to just rewatch casually because it's just so much fun. And I watched Panic Room because there are 2 Fincher films that I haven't seen and I had to pick one of them to watch, and I only had access to one of them on one of my streaming services, and that was Panic Room. And I'm glad I watched it because Panic Room was so much fun. I had a great time with it. But you'll hear more about that soon.
Yes, in its separate thing, I did also catch up with some Fincher films. I hadn't seen 3 of them, and I binged them all as well, but I won't be talking about it here, other than just tagging along what you just said. Panic Room, also first time watch. Pretty underrated Fincher film. It's really good. So yeah, that's all you've been watching. I watched Saw X. It's already out on VOD, by the way, as well. That's how I got to see it. Even though it's not releasing, I think for you as well, until like the end of next month. And yeah, I think critics have been praising it. It's one of the Saw films that has like the highest Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic score and everything. I didn't like it as much as some other people did. I think it was a pretty like weak overall because it was trying to expand the lore behind John Kramer, and I just didn't really care. So yeah, it left me a bit bored. But I think there's 1 or 2 of the like mechanisms of the kills that are like, oh my god, they're just like, they're so brutal, man. And I guess that's the intriguing part. I just want like a good moment that is really just like twist heavy, doesn't make any sense, and I just want that da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum, and that's all I need. Like, I just want the music at the end, and it didn't hit as hard. Like, I judge these Saw movies by how well the twist made me go, oh shit, and that's pretty much it. So there's no quality control or anything. But yeah, I also watched The Royal Hotel. Lachlan, I know you want to check that one out as well, right? It's the follow-up feature of Kitty Green. The Outback one, yeah, that is unfortunately, I think, kind of bland. Because I think The Assistant was like a workplace thing with the Harvey Weinstein type of overlooming theme of like a hostile work environment for like women. And this is basically that, but in an Outback like rural town in Australia, and I really want to hear what you think of it because it felt like it's just like stereotyping Australians as like these angry drunk people who I guess curse at you a bunch. And
Here's the thing. That is
is that
fucking
true?
Outback Australia. I'll tell you that for a fact.
All right, fair.
Maybe
Yeah,
not the
it's
swearing
just
as
it
much.
was
Sometimes they're quite conservative with that, but they will drop it. But most importantly, they
yeah
have their own culture out there. That's the majority of Australia is on the coast and at the major cities. That's the thing. But when you go to these smaller
yeah
towns, it does feel like a whole different community. And most of the time they're quite welcoming. That's the thing. And from the
yeah.
times that I've gone out and I've gone to like a local pub, they're very, very welcoming if you go on their busy nights because they love the chat, they love conversation. It's a lot of fun, but yeah, I'm assuming that it probably does feel like it might be stereotyping, but if I might watch it and I might go, no, that's about accurate.
But yeah, it's also like super aggressive with what its themes are, and they instead of just like going in a route where you still get it, they need to like amp it up so much where it's like so obvious what they're going for that I don't think it needs it. I really don't like when movies need to like hit you over the head with like a bat of what it's trying to say. It's kind of annoying, and The Assistant was like the antithesis to that. So, um, I didn't like where it ended up going at all. But yeah. There's also Pet Cemetery Bloodlines, a horrible film. I kept asking myself why am I watching this, and I have no answer for you. Sometimes you just gotta torture yourself. I watched the other Pet Cemetery remake on the plane back from Australia, back when we were studying together, right? And that's why, like, okay, I guess I'm watching Pet Cemetery now, the new one, and yeah, it was horrific. Same goes for Slotherhouse. I think some people were kind of saying like, "Ooh, that's pretty fun. It's like silly. It's like so dumb. It's just a killing sloth." But I didn't find it like the least bit funny. It's just really bad that it's kind of hiding behind, "Hey, we are making a bad movie, and you're gonna enjoy a bad horror film." But it was so annoying.
Yeah.
That yeah, it was really unenjoyable. Some people might love it. It might be like the trash film that it is fun to watch with a bunch of mates. I just found it unbearable. And then Pain Hustlers, basically a dollar store version of The Wolf of Wall Street, but with pharmaceuticals. We have Chris Evans in here, giving a pretty bad performance. Emily Blunt is in it, to put it bluntly. I know I don't I usually I'm not the biggest fan of her. I don't know what it is, but I'm just not sold on most of her performances, including this one. I think it's just like a weak overall story that ultimately is so perfect for Netflix, because they just shit out stuff and just put a bunch of stars in it, and that's that. And that's how this feels like. And yeah, definitely don't watch it. And then, yeah, for 8 hours of horror, we selected 4 movies that played, and people didn't know what they went in for. They came at 11 p.m. and left at 7 in the morning. It was quite intense. And we had a fun selection of films, 2 that I hadn't seen before, 2 that I was familiar with. The first 2 were actually Jennifer's Body. And then the second one was kind of a Swiss premiere because it never really played in theaters, with Evil Dead Rise. So that was a ton of fun to see like that hair ripping thing in an actual like big theater, because I only got to see it on VOD. And then we also had Anatomy, a German film about doctors that basically study on life subjects as they are like, striving for the ultimate, I guess, thing of knowledge, and they don't really care about the ethics. It's an interesting thing, but it kind of loses itself. It's not that great a movie. And then a cult classic that I had never seen before, an American Werewolf in London. I got to see for the first time. Really, not having seen like a bunch of the film, it was all new to me. And that film was surprisingly like morbid. It was so dark. at times, but also like very lighthearted and funny. And it's just like the director who's really great at that. He made like Animal House, but he also directed Michael Jackson's Thriller, and also a bunch of other movies. He's a really well versed and also versatile director who can do a bunch. And yeah, definitely recommend that one good horror film to check out. But yeah, that's all I've been watching.
I have one more that I completely forgot to tell you about.
All right.
On
Spill.
my flight back, because I had to go to Melbourne for work this week, and
You finished The
watched-
Bear?
No.
No. Okay. Fair. All right.
I
Sorry.
watched Cure.
What do you watch? Cure?
Cure. Hang on, I'm gonna send you the letterbox link, so you know which movie I'm talking about. But oh, that's the wrong link. I copied and pasted
Fingernails.
Oopsies.
Cure.
I watched Cure, which is 1997. It's a thriller, and I saw it getting some watches on Letterboxd recently, so I decided to try to get it, and I did, and it was bloody spectacular. I'll tell you that for a fact. It evolved really well, and there's something about late 90s, early 2000, like not under budget but low budget films that have this really gritty, gruesome look to them. That, funnily enough, when we were in Cannes, we did watch a film that tried to mimic that film grain style. The When Will the Bridge Flow or something like that. When Will the River Flow? Along those lines.
Only the River Flows?
Only
Or
the River
something like that?
Flows,
Yeah.
which the greatest part of that film was it's this really awesome style, and I feel like I need to rewatch that film. I feel like it's another one I would love to rewatch. I think it's coming out recently, soon in cinemas here in Australia. But that style, that look, that has been backed up with a really interesting story that evolves, and I absolutely had a ball of a time, which is why I gave it 4.5 stars. So that there is a big praise from me, and I completely forgot about it because it was a long week with flying back and forth to Melbourne, because it's all the way on the other side of Australia. But yeah, I gave that a watch and had a great time.
Yeah, and I mean, that's all the stuff we've been watching this week. Apart from The Killer, you got to see it in theaters, and I unfortunately missed the press screening to go give it a second watch, so I have to go off my memory from Venice, which already is like about to be like 3 months ago.
Years away.
Time is passing. Was it 2 months ago? I don't know. I can't even tell anymore. But The Killer, the latest from David Fincher, his 12th feature film, not including the first documentary film that he made. It's 118 minutes long and is based on the graphic novel of the same name. Been so far in the limited release that it's getting. In a couple of weeks, it is going to be out on Netflix. I don't think it's getting a wide release in most places, but if you look around, I guess internationally, it should be pretty available. It was in my market and for Lachlan as well in Australia, but 3.6 on Letterboxd, a 7.4 on IMDb, and a 76 on Metacritic. And because we don't really get I couldn't find a budget report, and I think even if they show it in theaters, I think for these Netflix limited releases, even if they're international, I think they're pretty bad at like actually getting the gross out until like a later date. So I couldn't find that for even projections for this film just yet. But yeah, Lachlan, can you tell us what this movie's about? Can you read us the logline?
After a fateful near miss, an assassin battles his employers and himself on an international manhunt he insists isn't personal.
I think that's really short and concise. And do you think this sums up the movie nicely and what its core actually is?
I think at its simplest form, yes. It is a very, very simple plot summary and tells you everything you really need to get into the film. And it was enough for me to be interested in it.
Fair, yeah. We're gonna stay clear of spoilers. Obviously, we're gonna get into spoilers later on, but we'll give you a warning. I think we can talk about a couple of things that this movie does structurally without actually giving a lot away. And I think it pretty much sums up the whole film in this logline already. That's basically the whole film. It's really a precise movie that takes its time for each part. I think the first opening thing where there's a fateful near miss assassination attempt, I think that takes up like 15 minutes of the movie or something like that before we get to there. And then it is 2 hours long, but it doesn't feel like a movie. I wouldn't say that isn't long, but just a movie that has a ton of stuff cramped into it. Because I think that was one of your when we talked about it before, your some of your critiques that it does feel kind of repetitive in a sense, like some parts of the voiceover structure that keeps repeating, and is basically the most introspective look that we get to see of Michael Fassbender's killer character. That he kind of repeats his same mantra of like, I basically don't care about anyone. You got to be precise, no emotions and stuff like that. Like his code, I think, is such a big part of the movie overall. And that was something that you ended up disliking later on in the film, or
It's not so much the repetitive nature of it. It's
right?
it's more I just got bored of a voiceover. So the film
That's totally fair.
the film's main protagonist, played by Michael Fassbender, which I'll get to his performance shortly. For at least the first, 30 minutes of the film, there's only about maybe 10 lines of dialogue. There is not a lot of dialogue that happens
Mm.
at the start of the film, and really the most dialogue happens towards the end of the film,
Mhm.
when
Yeah.
he's coming out of his shell, essentially, and it's obviously a growth
Mhm.
for the character to evolve and go from not talking to talking. But throughout the film, there's a lot of narration, and for me, that was one of the parts that I disliked the most. But
Mhm.
when I discussed it with you, the thing was it was still quite fresh, and I've had time to sit and think on it now. And for me, the the narration is fine at this point. I'm okay with it. At the time, I
Mhm.
was a little bit off put by it, but the repetitiveness was, to me, exciting because
Yeah.
this character is methodical. That's the thing. He needs to be
Yeah.
able to do the same thing or even nothing and still be on his A game. No matter how boring it
Mhm.
gets, he must not slip up. And that was exciting to hear him to see all the steps he takes to be careful with this
Mhm.
job and not to improvise but anticipate, or whatever the line he says,
Yeah.
anticipate, don't improvise, or whatever it is, was exciting because
Mhm.
it made it feel like, okay, he thinks he's in, he thinks he's out, he knows what can go wrong, and if this goes wrong, he'll take this plan. It was really exciting. And the character does evolve in from this methodical killer into this kind of person. And that was exciting for me because
Mhm.
Fassbender plays it extremely well. And for me, he is the glue that kept this film together for me throughout the entire thing. Just
Yeah.
watching his character evolve, and it's not big changes; it's quite subtle changes.
Mhm.
So for me, the biggest gripe I had with this film was the voiceover, but I have moved on from that, and in fact, I did raise my rating, which we'll get to the
Interesting.
ratings
Interesting stuff.
soon. But
Yeah, yeah.
did the
I already know
narration
what the
was the
rating will
narration
be,
fine
but yeah.
from you?
Uh, I think that was the part that I liked quite a bit because I guess it is quite reductive compared to what the novel is able to do. Like that moment, for example, in a trailer where it cuts to like, I don't give a fuck. And it goes like slow. I think that doesn't translate into movie form. It feels a bit cheesy to be saying that because he's saying it out loud. If he's just thinking it in a graphic novel, it actually feels kind of sick the way that this character is so apathetic towards like his surroundings. And it's a really edgy graphic novel overall. And he's just kind of a hateful person that just does not give a fuck. And I think the story in the graphic novel is also way more intriguing than what they end up doing, because I think his failed assassin attempt is something, it's just part of the story in there. I didn't read through the entire thing, but there's a bigger focus on like his retreatment place and stuff like that, like maybe who he's with, and that's obviously a part of this film as well, but it's just not, it just doesn't hit the same. It feels all just like facts about this guy, but I don't feel like I'm getting a full character portrait on this killer, and it really is trying to get there by this methodical repetition of his mantra. And I don't know if that fully comes together. Like, I went out of this film kind of feeling like, did I just see not just a miss by a character, but also by Fincher? Like something that didn't hit, that didn't have like big moments to me where I was like, oh, that was sick. And maybe it's because I was like really tired as well in the screening. We've told the story before in a 3 hour long Venice coverage, but basically because our boat was delayed, Kevin, who was with me in Venice, actually ended up missing, I think, the first 20 minutes of the film, and I decided to not go in anymore. But I was able to rebook the ticket, and I was just like exhausted that day from all the stress of like, oh, do I not get to see my most anticipated of the festival? I think I just went in with like, okay, just wow me, please, and it didn't wow me at all. I found some sequences stellar. I liked the really persistence with the sound design as well, and the way that was edited, that like you get that basically diegetic sound from the perspective of the character, you know. And I think that was like a strong thing to keep going with it. That's one of Fincher's strong suits that we come back to, that he really knows how to make an atmosphere and then stick to it as well. Unless there's studio interference and he makes Alien 3, Alien Cubed. But most of his stuff really shines in the type of world building that he does through the technical aspects of the film. And sometimes, like in Benjamin Button, they kind of fall short because the tech is not really there for the concept that he has, like on a larger scale. And you got a simple story here overall, and I think it was just a tad bit too simple, like a too less going on, you know. And I'd rather have a bit too much going on in this kind of story. But yeah,
Which is
those
interesting
are my
because
2 cents on it.
we're in an age of very big films, like very dense films, and to have something like this from a very capable director, it's interesting that you say that there's not much to chew
It's a
on,
choice,
and
yeah.
that's interesting that Fincher has probably decided to strip back the film a little bit. I haven't read the comics. I was actually just flicking through a couple of pages right now, just having a look at the style, and I could definitely see the style of that graphic novel bleed into this film a little bit. And I agree, Fincher.
Yeah.
He's a master at the craft when it comes to visual storytelling. I think that he's done an incredible job bringing this film's world to life, and it's quite a simple one. And I agree. I don't think there's much to chew on, unfortunately, when it comes to narrative structure with the film, because it pretty much guides you through it. It's separated into chapters, which at first I wasn't a fan of, but I see why they did it, because there's not a lot of explanation as to what's going on. You really have to follow it. So breaking it down into, what is it, like 4, 5 different chapters plus a prologue and an epilogue.
And locations? Is it locations as well?
No, there wasn't a prologue, was there? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, chapters, and then there's an epilogue as well, at the end, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
From a chapter standpoint, it's broken down, and that at least the main four, the epilogue's quite short, but the main four do help you understand what's happening, or at least help you understand
Yeah.
who the target is for the killer. And
Yeah.
if you didn't get it in that scene beforehand, then it kind of helps you guide it in to this particular sequence. And
Mhm.
for that design of the film, again, it's intentional. And I don't necessarily love or hate chaptering films, because sometimes
Mhm.
I think sometimes it's a cop out for having a flow into the next scene. But in this
Mhm.
case, I think that it's similar to the killer's methodical ways. It's a start and end, start and end. He has that. He has a
Yeah.
start and end to each sort of movement that he picks, and
Mhm.
that's the reason we went into chapters, is because you get a clear start and end point for the killer's motive, and that makes it
Yeah.
feel methodical, and that's just another style point on top of just the standard, here's chapter 1, here's chapter 2. If you get what I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm going with it.
I got you. Yeah. Let's talk about spoilers. So for those who haven't been able to check it out yet, you can skip to the ratings. The time codes are linked below. I think overall, I would still say if you like Fincher, then definitely go check it out. And if you like Hitman movies, and maybe even thrillers, I think it's worth your while just for the stylistic elements. It's one of the better made films of the year, even if the story doesn't completely hook you. But speaking of how that character is crafted and how methodical he is, there are some sequences when he's fighting. You can really see like how prepared he is for fighting, but then when he has to improvise, that he's uh I mean, also a very capable fighter, but he shines when he has like a moment to think and then
Yep.
find a solution for his problem. And I think that's
Yep.
conveyed like expertly. It's so well done. And I think it's probably the best sequence in the film, at least action wise, when we are in that Florida man home and he's fighting him, right? It's pretty sick
Yeah.
sequence overall.
There's very unfortunately there's very little action. I was hoping for a little bit more, but that one sequence really does make you feel the full weight of the killer's skill. Because
Yeah.
again, it gets quite messy until it slows down,
Yeah.
and then it becomes very clean, and it's a very interesting fight where
Yeah.
the sequence starts off as a he plans it out, he knows where they are, he kind of understands they're going to come home a little bit intoxicated, maybe. It does very
Mhm.
much have this thought planned out sequence with drugging the dog and all those previous things I made mention of into this scene that's very chaotic. And that's interesting compared
Yeah.
to the previous sequences we've had, especially the scene we had just before this, with how clean and methodical he was with taking out the lawyer uh and Dolores
Mhm.
in that scene. It was insane, and for me that was my favorite point up until we had that action scene. But that was him showing off what he can do. So we start off the movie with a mistake. Mistakes happen, we get
Mhm.
that. But then we
Yeah.
can see what he can do when it all goes to plan. Then we
Mhm.
see it all go wrong. And it's a
Yeah.
very interesting dynamic to see a perfectly laid out plan versus a plan that completely goes wrong. Because while I think the first assassination
Yeah.
is wrong, this one is very chaotic.
I think it's the thing of like show don't tell, where this movie is obviously trying to get straight into his procedure and then something goes wrong, and that's where it starts off. A graphic novel is able to just basically show him do his work and do a bunch of one-liners, and that would be so incredibly cheesy if he did
Yeah.
that in a voiceover in movie form, and Fincher knows that. So he has to start differently. And I think it's to the detriment of this character, because all we see him do is basically fail, and then to kind of reestablish him as this force that can take out the people he's going on a revenge tour against, uh and he's being removed because he's more powerful to them. And then the later he goes, the more conflicted he gets because he doesn't have that upper hand anymore, and he has to get messy. And you can kind of see his coda kind of breaking down the more he has to do that, where it just doesn't work if you can't distance yourself from being so apathetic towards death and just not caring. It just doesn't work like we're humans. Even if you try to remove yourself, it's not really working, and he starts contradicting himself. And I feel like with a lot of Fincher films, they're really dark, but also there's some kind of thing to gnaw yourself into, especially on a rewatch. I didn't get much away from it on my first watch, but I noticed this prepping for the bracket that we're about to do. Getting to rewatch some of his stuff, I think that's really where he's good at, when you can pay attention to what he's building with some of the stuff with his characters. He's just really great at it, and even in subtle ways that are sometimes kind of hard to actually describe in why it works. But I think the Tilda Swinton character was kind of shit. I think that moment was pretty bad. I didn't like it. But Lachlan, I have a different opinion. Did you like the cameo? It
Well, I
was
don't know
really
who
a
she
cool
is.
character.
Other than just being called the expert, and
Yeah, she's not even an Oscar expert, man. We don't condone this behavior. If you're not even predicting the Oscars, then you deserve to get shot, I guess.
The
That's
thing
harsh,
is
but-
about the other characters is that we know just quite simply that, like, we know that Tilda Swinton's character's also an assassin, but we don't know
Yeah,
to what level she's at, other than being quite a talkative one, which is a big
and being Tilda
contrast
Swinton,
to at being Tilda Swinton. But also, it's a very juxtaposing character to Michael Fassbender's killer, because he's quiet and methodical, and she seems to be happy to just chat someone's ear off before she probably pops him off. I was forgetting what the cool way of saying kill is, and pop him or something like that. I don't know.
Pop 'em.
I don't know. I'm not an assassin.
Suck 'em.
Clearly, I'm not.
Yeah,
Or if I am, I'm a terrible one. But at least with
that's
some
his
of the other
front.
characters, like the lawyer or just the name Dolores, kind of makes sense that she's not really a big character, but she's, probably just a everyday
Well, it's also
person.
such a
Or
fun
even,
name to
like,
say.
yeah,
know?
the Brute.
Dolores.
That makes sense. I know who the Brute is.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be this badass bloke, but with Tilda Swinton's character, she's just a little bit, unfortunately, just a bit iffy. But I did enjoy that moment with her because, again, she was so different to him, and they both have the same job. So it's really interesting how it challenges Fassbender's, morals of how he goes about this job, where she's like, trying to distance yourself, eh? Can't happen. I'm sure you're loving this. And she kind of calls him out,
Yeah.
going, why did you just not kill me in a hit and run? Instead, you put yourself in this situation. And I was like, that's true. And this is my favorite part of the film, is Fassbender's very minimal performance, going from this methodical, doesn't take risks kind of person, counting the calories that he intakes, mainly just protein, right? He took off the bread from the McMuffin on the Macca's sandwich, right? And, the other big one that I picked up on, and this is the one that I really noticed, and then I started really picking into like what he was doing, is that he would drink from that metal cup, and only from that metal cup, right? On the plane, when he was at the thing. And then he was drinking water bottles. Then he was getting Starbucks coffee. Then he was just like, just going on Amazon, just buying stuff. And this was just watching him go from one character who seemingly was really good at his job and didn't take risks, and has evolved into this character that's just kind of losing his touch, not making it personal, but losing his very small things that keep him away from being known. So for me,
Yeah.
evolving into this, confrontation where he could have literally just killed her, which he tried to do with the Brute, right? He didn't want to make it a big scene. Knock out the dog, just him alone, was probably going to go in and kill him. No conversation needed. In fact, when the Brute went to go talk to him and say something, he just, boom, bullet to the head. Didn't want to hear what he had to say. But he wanted to hear what she had to say. And that was exciting for me. So these are the small things that I picked up on. And as I've sat, down driving, because I've done some driving and just thinking about everything over the past couple of days, I've realized that the film is incredibly smart with displaying it that way, which has made me be more positive towards it than how I originally felt coming out of the cinema. Because coming out of the cinema, it's obviously a very slow burn of a film. It's not super fast paced or anything. And there's not much to really sink your teeth into story-wise, except for a few really fun moments like that action scene or watching him just, dispose of a body. And even that's not that super exciting, right? Because you don't actually see any of it. You just see him disposing of parts. At least that's what we believe he's doing. At what we're, alluded to what he's actually doing. But for me, once I've sat down and thought about it, I'm like, no, Fincher hasn't lost his touch. I was just probably expecting a bit more of an action film because of his, and something maybe a bit more in your face that we've seen in the past with movies like Seven, with how gory they are, or how, gruesome some of the scenes in Gone Girl can be. These are just really interesting tropes that I thought I would see from a Fincher film, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And I thought I was disappointed.
Yeah.
In fact, I've realized that no, he is just doing a very different film. Not completely different, but something that's not as in your face.
You know what it is? You watch Panic Room this week, and it's a really simple premise, and he executes it expertly. And if you kind of see that in The Killer, it's very similar in that way. Where some of his other films feel conceptually like they establish these really big worlds, like in Fight Club, or like the crime world in Seven, or even like something like The Game that gets super messy as well. I think he can do both. He can do the intrigue, the complicated stuff like Zodiac, like Gone Girl, but he also shines in the simpler stories. And I initially gave this when I came out of Venice, the Venice screening, a 4 out of 5. I think I'm closer to a 3.5 now, but it's somewhere in between there. It's definitely not among his best work, but it's also not at the bottom like at all. I think it's like somewhere in the middle, but he just has like a really strong overall filmography that whenever something isn't like incredible, it's ultimately gonna be like a lesser of his films, even if it's still like worthwhile for any cinephile, I'd say. Yeah, what about you, Lachlan?
So I have slowly come to like the film a lot more. I was sitting at a 3 stars, and then I was sitting at a 3.5. Then I was sitting at a 4. Then I brought it back down to 3.5, and I keep just sitting here. Like, hang on, I see if I can basically do it on camera. But I'll sit here with the film open on my phone, right? Where's The Killer? It should just be right here. Someone has. Why is it not popular this week? Oh, it's right there. And I'll sit there, and I'll have the thing up, and I'll kind of just sit here, going up and down with the stars, trying to figure out the spot that I want to sit on, right? So I was at 3, went to 3.5, went to 4, went back down to 3.5, and as we were opening this conversation, I was sitting at 4.
So after our conversation, are you gonna give it a 4, or are you moving it back down?
So I'm gonna give it a 5. No, I'm kidding. I also agree with you. I think 3.5 is where I'm gonna end up lying, because I do agree. I do believe that the film doesn't have much to chew on, but from its simplest form, it's really fun. It's actually a lot of fun.
It is. So let's pair it up with a double feature. I think one of your favorite films you picked here, I see. You want to share what you're gonna pair up with The Killer?
After you've watched A Methodical Killer, why don't you watch two of them argue and bicker in a beautiful European town? Talking about In Bruges. I love In Bruges. You should definitely watch it. Everybody at home. It's a incredible story. And if you haven't seen it, stop what you're doing. Go watch it, and don't even try to search for anything. The less you know, the better. That's the more fun it is.
It's from Martin McDonagh. That's all we're gonna say. And it's also, doesn't it star the same people as in the Banshees of Inisherin, right?
Yes.
It's a reunited cast there. And now this out for you if you liked last year's movie, go check it out. Mine is if you like Sigourney Weaver, then Alien Cubed is for you. Now, is this a good pairing? Well, don't ask me that question. That's unfair. But if you haven't seen it, you definitely should experience it because I hadn't experienced it until then, and now I've been indoctrinated into the cult, and I feel like you, we need you to be a part of it as well because all of us together we make one cubed person. So that's what we're gonna do with aliens.
Alien Cubed.
And he's got it all, man. Alien Cubed. I was about to say, is this just for Alien Cube? But no, it's this crazy. Is it a Predator Alien box set or is
This
it
is
it
the
Alien only?
Predator Alien box, and this was before
It's a sick one.
Prometheus came out and the Predator.
Prometheus and Prey, yeah.
Give me a new Alien versus Predator movie. Do it.
I think the series is coming out next year until they delay it into
Hell
oblivion.
yeah.
But I think
Also,
someone.
you were telling me
I
there
think-
was
it-
a
yeah.
longer cut.
Yes, there was apparently a cut that they made for a box set for this. It probably wasn't the one that you got here, but because it was just
Sad.
the first 3 Alien films, and obviously Fincher didn't come back to watching this. We discussed this. I asked Lachlan if he had seen that version, and if we can discuss it when we talk about the film in bracket form when it goes up against other films. And it's basically just a way longer cut that was put together by the producer. And yeah, Fincher just wanted to be disconnected from this project basically before it even came out, and obviously didn't want anything to do with it. So the cut is just like extended stuff, but I don't think this movie can be saved through cutting. I feel like they already tried to do that for the theatrical version, and it is kind of a mess. But I do feel like the base for Alien Cubed is kind of great, but they just don't
I kind of want to see if it's
do
on
a good
here.
job of it. Oh, if that like longer cut is on it. I mean, the original is I think like 100. It's just 2 hours, and the other one's like 2.5 or something like that.
Do you reckon you could close the rest of the podcast without me while I go find out?
Sure. So say
All
bye
right,
to
cool.
Lachlan. He's gonna go off into Wonderland. But yeah, new releases of the week. Really excited for everyone to go check out Fingernails on Apple TV Plus. That's coming out November 3rd. And then in some places, I think not for me, and I'm not entirely sure about Australia for Lachlan. So I will see if we get to cover the latest from Sofia Coppola. Priscilla will be out in wide release in the States. Those are the 2 films that I care about the most. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming out. Anatomy of a Fall, I think, is expanding. Just have a look around of all of those festival premieres now that in the last 2 months of the year, at least if you live in New York and LA, I guess you do get these limited runs that they have to be qualifying for the Oscars. But also in some other places, you should be able to get them soon. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you want to support the show, then consider leaving a like, subscribing, and rating the podcast on your podcast app of choice. And then we got a whole bunch of stuff that should be coming out soon. Again, like we teased, we are about to do a Fincher bracket, trying to crown what the best David Fincher is. And it's going to be definitive, and there's going to be an answer, and you'll all have to agree on it collectively, the internet. But it's going to be a hard thing. We're about to do that. And then we are doing the second round of Jeopardy. If you haven't seen that first video, it's actually a really fun one where one of us had to do the hardest hot sauce that is available on each of our continents. And yeah, one of us definitely suffered. And we're going to do it again. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll go check those
It
videos
wasn't
out.
me.
And there's a bunch of interviews. That was all, but no, he's spoiling it. Oh my God. Lachlan can be a loser in their minds until they see the video and then they see that I'm actually the loser. But anyways, now I gotta close this podcast as a loser. So I guess we'll see you next week. We don't know yet what we're gonna be talking about. Maybe Priscilla, maybe Fingernails. We'll see. But we'll see you then. So bye-bye. Can you just look at the runtime at the back of the DVD?
It says there's 300. There's 9 Alien vs Predator movies. There's 2 bonus discs. There's 35 hours of special features. There's 10. Yeah, and the rest of it is just
35 hours?